Well, we're going to cover chapter 12 tonight, or today, or whatever it is. We're talking a little bit about digital certificates, a little bit about PKI, key management, transportation systems. What is a digital certificate? Well, it is a way to prove who someone is. That's all it is. It's a method that uses cryptography to prove who they are.
What about one of the things that has come up at work is the certificates for IP addresses.
Okay, what about them?
Is it the same kind of thing?
It's a digital certificate that authenticates that IP address to say who they are.
Okay.
What
would cause a DHCP server to lose certificates for machines?
If they're revoked, the time has expired. There's a lot of different things. The scope got changed.
The only problem we're having is with the brand new Dell 9020s.
It's probably the Dell 9020s that are having the issues.
So they're not being put on the machine.
They might not be the machines might not be accepting them. They might not have. There may be a setting on the machine that is not set like everything else.
Yeah, it's been resolving itself within a couple of days, but it takes a couple of days for it to.
Without seeing it, it's kind of hard to really tell you.
The only thing you can see though is the fact that it can't get a nice.
No, I'm just saying, seeing the scenario compared to other computers and how the network is functioning, it's kind of hard for me to truly answer your question or help you troubleshoot it.
So how many areas in a big network like that would you be using digital certificates?
I wouldn't for IP addresses, but they may be needed for the programs that you're running for medical records for HIPAA compliance. I don't know. HIPAA compliance just changed for the cryptography in the minimum system requirements. So I don't know. I haven't read up on that part yet, so I couldn't really tell you. But there are a lot of cryptographic stuff that I would put in place just for prevention, and then I'd encrypt it and then the data so that no one can get to it.
But you wouldn't use a digital certificate on a regular network so that you could make sure that the only computers connecting are the ones that are supposed to be connecting?
I would do it by the MAC address.
Associate a MAC address with a digital certificate?
Yes, instead of the IP, because that way it's your hardware only. Because if you have a DHCP scope and I go plug in my laptop, you're going to give me a DHCP address. And then you've given me qualifications to get into your system. Is that not a vulnerability?
Yeah.
So if you tie it to the MAC address and you know what the MAC address is to every NIC or a computer in your system is.
I think that's the problem.
You're doing.
The computer's supposed to have a digital certificate associated with the computer and the MAC address.
But they've applied it to the IP instead?
No, in order to get an IP, you have to have the digital certificate. It can't get an IP because it's not got the certificate.
Like I said, I don't know how they got it set up.
Or it can't find it.
Well, once you plug it in, DHCP is automatically going to kick in because it's looking for it. It'll get an IP address. It may not authenticate it to resources. And that's where you need the digital certificate to come into play. And that may be what it's trying to do. Like I said, I'm gambling here without knowing how it's set up there. A digital signature, basically all it is like similar to a token. It's just it can be on a smart card. If you just take a picture like a document certificate saying, you're awarded this, or by Rose State, it's going to have the Rose State seal of approval on it, right? The Rose State logo. That's what a digital signature is. It's an original document. The weakness of using a digital signature is someone can be an imposter. They can say that they are who they are, fake the digital certificate by your public key. So the original, here's how it does. Bob creates the original message. Please call me right away. The man in the middle takes it, replaces Ralph's public key with his own public key, and says, no need to call me, and sends it to Alice. What is a trusted third party? How many of y'all familiar with VeriSign? They're a trusted third party. They authenticate your digital signature, and they help prevent man-in-the-middle attacks, because when you get the information and you send it to VeriSign, it'll give you the owner's name and alias, their public key, and whoever issued the certificate to begin with. And that's why I like.
So they're at the receiver end?
No, they're a third party.
Third party, but they're like, so it'd be, instead of sending it straight across, you send it to the third party.
Okay, it would be like your transcript from Rose State. I'm hiring you, and I say you have to have a transcript. You have to go to Rose State, who sends me the transcript, and it has their seal of approval. I don't accept your unofficial transcript. I have to get the official one. Same idea.
But I mean, instead of straight across, it's more like a triangle.
Exactly. They validate the information. Inside the digital certificate, you're going to have the issuer's digital certificate, the digital certificate serial number. George, the door, please. And the expiration of that public key. In order to manage a digital certificate, there are 5 different things that have to happen. You have a certificate authority, you'll have a registration authority, the revocation list, a repository, and a web browser. Okay? What is a certificate authority? Certificate authority would be like VeriSign, the company. Okay? They're responsible for issuing those digital certificates, and it can be internal or externally organization. How many of y'all have had network administration? A couple of you. You remember you can actually create your own digital certificates that are just non-trusted. The duties of a CA would be to issue, generate, and distribute public key certificates. Provide means for subscribers' request to revocation. Revoke public key certificates. And maintain the CIA and security of certificate issuance. Alright? Subscriber requesting a digital certificate. If I request a digital certificate, I send it to the CA, who generates my public and private key. I then send my public key to the CA. The CA will create some keys in instance. They will give insert that public key into the certificate, and then it's signed with that issuing CA. Registration authority is subordinate to the CA. All they do is offload registration functions to help the CA. That's all they do. They receive, authenticate, and process certificate revocation requests. So if I find a certificate that's been forged, I send it back to the CA and say, this is a forged one. Please revoke it. And they put it on the revocation list. Different ways for a digital certificate requester to identify themselves. They can do it in documents, in person, or in email. You have to have a way to prove who you are. The CRL, basically all it is just a list of everything that's been revoked. Pretty straightforward. Reasons to revoke a certificate is if it's no longer used, the details of it have changed, or the private key has been lost or exposed. Certificate repository. basically it's public accessible directory that houses all digital certificates. And you can get through it through a web browser. Web browser management. Most web browsers have the default CAs attached into it, so you can go and get the CA list if you need to. And then you can have your internal certificates. There are 5 different kinds of classes for digital certificates. You have class 1 through class 5. You have dual key and dual sided. Again, all they do is provide secure communication between the clients and servers, encrypting channels. That's all it does. So that you can unencrypt it. Other uses for digital certificates: you can verify identity of the clients to make sure they have access or permissions to your network. And you can verify the source and integrity of assigned executable code to make sure that it is who they are programmed it and it's not someone else. Basically, all a digital certificate is like your driver's license. Essentially, is the state of Oklahoma has issued me this saying that I am Kristen Ryan or I am Aaron Smith. Here is my ability to drive legally in the state of Oklahoma. Cop pulls you over, says, "Where's your license and registration?" You can validate it, and he can validate off that who you are. That's all, essentially a digital certificate. It's just a digital image, essentially, well, digital text of what would be on there. Does that make sense? Did that break it down a little easier for y'all instead of all these weird terminologies?
So it's like a digital signature, except instead of a person with the signature, it's like a site or what?
No, it is your personal signature.
Oh.
You know when you sign your tax forms and they say enter your PIN, that PIN is attached to you. You're the only one that should know that PIN. So if you put in the wrong PIN, then obviously someone else signed your tax form. But if you put in the right PIN, you signed it. It's just a validation way of saying that you are who you are in the electronic world. That's all it is.
Okay.
Just like you would have your driver's license in the physical world, it's essentially your ID for your computer world. That's all it is. Class 1s are personal digital certificates. Class 2s are servers. You have extended validation SSL certificates. Class 3 are software publishers. Those are going to be focused on the dual key type of digital certificate and dual sided in the X.509s. Now let's talk a little bit about PKI, public key infrastructure. Why is it important? Well, it's a management tool for asymmetric cryptography and digital certificates. It is what manages your public key. It has trust models and it has key management. So it really is the need that consist means to manage digital certificate. It provides a framework for everything. It allows you to create, store, distribute, and revoke certificates. There are a number of set of PKI standards defined by the RSA, and public key cryptographic standards, the PKCS, are well widely known. All right. There's your 10. Tells you if they have a name or not and what they're actually for. There's 11 to 15. So I'm not going over with them. If you want to look them up, they're in your book. All right. If I wanted to use the PKCS support in Windows, I'd use right here. I use my X.509 if I wanted to as well. Or I just use the PKCS. And if I click this, include all certificates, within the path, then it'll open up 12. Trust models. Well, what is it built on? Trust. Basically, it's trusting that a relationship does exist. Direct trust, one person knows another. Kristen knows Aaron. That's a direct trust. Third party trust. Carol knows Kristen through Aaron. Well, in that case, that scenario wouldn't work. Hierarchical trust model. The school, the CA, called the root, assigns a digital to an authority, which would be me, and then is this organization, then I can hereby give it down to you. Does that make sense? That's hierarchical. But if one gets hacked, they're all worthless. So do you want to use a hierarchical? That's an example. And then it just keeps on going down. Distributed trust model, multiple CAs sign digital certificates, eliminates the the limitations of hierarchical trust model. The bridge trust model, one CA acts as a facilitator for all the other CAs. The facilitator CA does not issue the certificate, the other ones do. Here's the facilitator. The intermediates are the ones that issue. Make sense? I have a bridge. I can bridge from that CA to this CA so these can go through. Bridge trust models be federal and state governments, pharmaceutical and aerospace industry where you have multiple companies trying to trade information. Certificate policy. Why would you want a certificate policy? Greg?
It basically sets up rules for how certificates should be issued.
But why would you want it?
You don't have rules and issue certificates without.
You'd have an anarchy. Everyone does what they want to do, right? Then do you really have any trust? No. If you don't have a set of policies or rules to govern something, you're going to have anarchy and there's no one going to be able to trust anyone. Certificate practice statement, basically you're going to describe in detail how the CA uses and manages certificates. Certificate life cycle, you can create it when you first identified. I can suspend it if I need to go on a leave of absence so no one can use it while I'm gone. I can revoke it, which means that certificate is no longer valid, or it can be expired, which it runs out of time. So, those are the 4 ways to do it. Essentially, you have creation, and then it works. Everything else will kill it. Key storage. Means of public key storage. Why is it, Matthew, why do you think we need to have public key storage?
Well, because since you're issuing these things out, and then they'd get unissued, I guess, I need to know if they aren't stored anywhere.
Well, they're going to be stored somewhere. Where are they going to be stored?
Well, it's a key, so it'd have to be stored in the. Huh? I didn't know you could store keys in hardware. That kind of makes sense. I was just thinking of it as kind of a Cyberman thing.
You're going to have public keys and your private keys, right? Your public keys are going to be in a repository in which everyone can have access to. Your private keys are going to be stored on your local machine that no one will have access to.
Okay.
It's so that when you send it out, people can go back and find your public key and open up the document you sent them.
Right.
Alternative storing keys, you can do it on smart cards or you can do it on tokens. Either way. Multiple pairs of dual keys, created if more security is needed than just a single set of private. One pair will encrypt, and the second pair will be just used for digital signatures. Key escrow. How many of y'all have a house?
I don't own a house.
How many of you own a house?
I
Just a
know
couple
what
of you?
escrow is.
How many of y'all know what escrow is?
Yeah.
It's a pot of money that you put in there, and then at the end of the year, at certain times of the year, that your mortgage company pulls it out to pay bills for you, such as your insurance and your insurance and your taxes. Well, same thing. Key escrow. Basically, it's a pot where your private key is split and each half is encrypted. The two halves are sent to the third party, which stores each half in a separate location. User can retrieve and combine the two halves and use this new copy of the private key to decrypt anything. That way that no one has your full private key. Renewal, you can renew your key if you want to. Revocation, once it's revoked, it cannot be reinstated. It's done for. It's over with. It has a stick of fork in it. Okay. Recovery, if you lose it, you can recover it with a key recovery agent, but it takes a little bit longer. Suspension, let's say I get put on suspension, they can suspend my certificates for X number of days. Once the period of time is over, then it will be reinstated. And then destruction, it removes all public and private keys for that user's identification. Transport encryption algorithms, SSL, TLS. What is SSL? Well, it came from Netscape. It was the first form of secure transportation over HTTP. And it allows encrypted traffic to traverse the network. TLS is what guarantees privacy and data integrity between the applications and the internet. All right. Both provide server and client authentication data encryption. Secure shell, what is that? It's a shell script that is in a secure environment. It's for telnet purposes. It's usually based on Unix or Linux. And you're going to have your slogin, SSH, or SCP. And then basically the client server ends the connection or authenticated through a digital certificate. Passwords are encrypted. And then that's how you can do a lot of different things. SSL again takes HTTP, makes it secure, so it's secure HTTP or HTTPS, which is HTTP over SSL. Now there's also H or SHTTP. They're two different things. Secure HTTP is just a public specification that uses encryption types including triple S. Okay. It's not as widely used as taking your HTTP traffic and putting it over SSL. What's IPsec? IP security, right? All it does is secure your packets being exchanged from system to system. It operates at the lowest level of the OSI model in your network area. And it's transparent to applications, users, and software. Basically, all it does is provide authentication, confidentiality, and key management. Provides that tunnel for the traffic to go through. All right. Any questions on Chapter 12? All right. Your final exam time is scheduled for May 14th from 9:30 to 11:20, which is the Wednesday, or 2 weeks from today. However, since this is a combined class of online and in-class students, I'm going to do all of you a favor. I'm not going to send you to the LRC to have to take your test. Instead, I'm going to open up your test starting on Monday at midnight, and you will have until 11:20 on Wednesday, which would be the last part of your final exam time. You will have 90 minutes to complete your exam. Do remember there are 100 questions and 2 essays. There is no need to come to school for these. You may take them.
Wednesday,
It'll be open from May 12th at midnight, as in 12 a.m., to May 14th at 11:20 p.m. or a.m. I'm sorry, 11:20 a.m. You will have 90 minutes to take your test. So what I would encourage you not to start your test later than 9:30 a.m. so that you have your 90 minutes. Because if you start at 11, you're only going to get 20 minutes because it locks you out at 11:20. It won't let you submit it. I don't think you would like that too well, would you? So I'm going to allow y'all to make it a take-home, open book, open note, but you'll never get it in time test. Huh? You're not going to get it in time. Because that scrambled all the questions and all the answers. So even if you use the study guide, you're not going to have a chance. You'll have to know it. Is there any questions on that final? Are y'all scared?
Yeah.
Are y'all really scared?
No.
So here's what you're going to do next week. On Monday, I'm going to cover chapters 13 and 14. On Wednesday, it'll be open lab time. I'll be down in my office. But it'll be open lab time for you to do your cyber protect if you want to get it turned in. You don't have to show up if you don't want to next Wednesday. All right? So essentially after Monday, we're done. Don't you feel better?
No.
Until you take your final exam and fail it, Matthew?
Yeah.
All right. Well, I wish all the best.